You're sitting there right now, watching this video thinking you're perfectly still. But you're not. You're spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour at this very moment. Yeah, 1,000 miles per hour. The Earth is rotating beneath you like a giant cosmic carousel, and you don't even feel it. Now picture this. What if, suddenly, without any warning, the Earth just stopped? Like emergency brake pulled in the middle of the cosmic highway. 1 minute of total pause. Just 60 seconds. Sounds harmless, right? I mean, it's only a minute. How bad could it be? Well, buckle up, because this 1 minute would unleash absolute chaos on a scale that makes every disaster movie look like a kid's cartoon. We're talking about winds that make hurricanes look like a gentle breeze, tsunamis that would dwarf anything in recorded history, and a redistribution of every ocean on the planet. Today, we're going to walk through exactly what would happen if Earth hit the pause button for just 60 seconds. And spoiler alert, you're probably not surviving this one. But let's see how far you'd make it. First, let's talk about what's actually happening right now. The Earth rotates at different speeds depending on where you are. At the equator, the surface is moving at about 1,040 miles per hour, or 1,670 kilometers per hour. That's faster than the speed of sound. Up at the poles, almost no rotational speed at all. It's like standing at the center of a spinning record player versus standing at the edge. You don't feel this insane speed because everything around you, the air, the buildings, your coffee cup, is moving at the exact same velocity. You're all in sync. It's like being on a plane cruising at 500 mph. You can walk around, drink your terrible airplane coffee, and you feel perfectly normal because you and the plane are moving together. But what happens when that plane hits turbulence and drops 100 feet in 2 seconds? You feel it. Hard. Your stomach lurches. Your drink goes flying. Suddenly you're very aware that you were moving fast. Now, multiply that feeling by about 1,000. That's what would happen if Earth stopped spinning. Let's set the scene. It's a normal Tuesday morning. You're having breakfast, scrolling through your phone, maybe wondering if you should actually go to the gym today. The answer is no, by the way. You're not going. You never do on Tuesdays. Then, at exactly 9:47 a.m., something impossible happens. The Earth stops rotating, completely, instantly, like someone just pulled the plug on a record player. And in that first second, everything that isn't bolted to the ground keeps moving at 1,000 miles per hour. Starting with you, the Earth stops. You don't. Your body continues moving eastward at highway speeds and you're launched like a ragdoll. If you're inside a building, you smash into the eastern wall at lethal velocity. If you're outside, you're tumbling across the ground, bouncing, rolling, breaking every bone in your body until friction finally brings you to a stop, assuming there's enough of you left to stop. Cars? They're not driving anymore. They're missiles. Every vehicle on every road is instantly flung forward. Drivers slam into windshields. Passengers become projectiles. Multi-car pileups don't even begin to describe it. It's more like multi-thousand car explosions happening simultaneously on every highway in the world. Buildings would fare slightly better, but only slightly. Skyscrapers, especially tall ones near the equator, would experience catastrophic shearing forces. The foundation stops, but the upper floors want to keep moving. Steel beams would bend, glass would shatter. Entire floors would collapse sideways like a house of cards hit by a sledgehammer. And we're only 3 seconds in. Now let's talk about the air. The atmosphere doesn't stop either. When the Earth halts, the air keeps moving at over 1,000 mph. Suddenly, you've got hypersonic winds screaming across the entire surface of the planet. Winds so fast they would strip the paint off buildings, rip trees out of the ground, roots and all. Turn loose debris into shotgun blasts of lethal shrapnel. If somehow, miraculously, you survive the initial stop, these winds would finish the job. You can't breathe in 1,000 mph winds. Your lungs would collapse. The air pressure differential would be like trying to inhale while being waterboarded with a fire hose. You'd suffocate in seconds, assuming you weren't already pulverized by flying debris. Hurricanes have wind speeds of maybe 150 to 200 mph at their absolute worst. This would be 5 times stronger. Everywhere. All at once. And then, there's the water. Oh boy, the water. Oceans don't stop. When the Earth halts, every drop of water in every ocean keeps moving eastward. The Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, all of them. They all become wall of water moving at supersonic speeds. Picture this, a tsunami, not 30 feet tall, not 100 feet tall, but hundreds of feet tall, moving at 1,000 miles per hour, slamming into every eastern coastline on the planet simultaneously. The east coast of the Americas would be obliterated. Europe would be drowned under a wall of water that makes Noah's flood look like a bathtub overflow. Cities like New York, Boston, Miami, Lisbon, Lagos, they'd all be erased. Not damaged. Erased. Wiped clean off the map in a matter of seconds. The water wouldn't just flood these cities, it would disintegrate them. Concrete, steel, glass, everything would be pulverized and dragged inland for hundreds of miles. Hey, real quick, if you're still here watching this absolute nightmare unfold, you're probably the kind of person who loves scientifically accurate apocalypse scenarios. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button because we've got a lot more of these catastrophic thought experiments coming. And drop a comment. Would you survive this? Where would you even try to hide? I genuinely want to know what you think. Alright, back to the carnage. We're about 15 seconds into our 1-minute stop, and the planet already looks like it went through a cosmic blender. But it gets worse, because now we need to talk about what happens inside the Earth. The Earth's core is liquid iron, and it's also rotating. When the surface stops, the core doesn't. Not immediately. It keeps spinning, creating unimaginable friction and heat between the outer crust and the inner layers. This would trigger earthquakes, not regular earthquakes, megaquakes, magnitude 10, maybe magnitude 11 earthquakes rippling across every tectonic plate simultaneously. Fault lines that have been stable for centuries would rupture. The San Andreas Fault? Gone. The ring of fire around the Pacific exploding like a string of firecrackers. Volcanoes that have been dormant for millennia would erupt all at once, spewing ash and lava into an already hellish atmosphere. Mountains would crumble, valleys would collapse. The very shape of the continents would change in real time. And remember, all of this is happening while you're being thrown around like you're inside a tumble dryer filled with broken glass and angry hornets. Let's say, hypothetically, you were in some kind of reinforced bunker deep underground when this happened. Maybe you were visiting a Cold War-era nuclear shelter, or you work in a deep mine, or you're just incredibly lucky and incredibly well protected. You'd still feel it. The shaking would be relentless. The walls would crack. Support beams would buckle. Even if the structure held, you'd be tossed around inside like dice in a cup. Broken bones, internal bleeding, concussions. Best case scenario, you're badly injured and trapped under rubble. Worst case, the bunker becomes your tomb. Now we're 30 seconds in, halfway through our 1-minute pause. Half the planet is already unrecognizable. But here's where it gets interesting, because now the Earth has to start spinning again. Yeah. It doesn't just stop for a minute and then everything's fine. For this scenario to even remotely make sense, the Earth would have to start rotating again. Otherwise, we'd have bigger problems. Like one side of the planet roasting under constant sunlight and the other freezing in eternal darkness kind of problems. So at the 60-second mark, the Earth starts spinning again. And guess what? All that momentum has to come back. Everything that stopped now has to accelerate back to 1,000 tau mph, which means round 2 of the chaos. The winds reverse. The oceans slosh back in the opposite direction. Western coastlines, which just got a brief reprieve, now face their own mega tsunamis. The water that flooded hundreds of miles inland now drains back toward the sea, dragging everything with it. Buildings, vehicles, debris, bodies, all of it swept back into the churning ocean. The atmosphere, which had just started to settle, gets whipped back into a hypersonic frenzy going the other direction. Any structure that somehow survived the first stop now gets pummeled from the opposite side. It's like hitting rewind on the apocalypse, except it's not fixing anything, it's just breaking whatever was left. And the earthquakes, they don't stop. The tectonic chaos continues. The friction between the Earth's crust and core creates thermal shock waves. Magma chambers rupture. New volcanoes form in places that never had volcanic activity before. By the time the Earth is fully rotating again, the damage is beyond catastrophic. It's extinction level. Let's talk about who, if anyone, survives this. Statistically, almost nobody. We're talking about a survival rate in the low single digits, maybe less. The only people with any chance would be those who happened to be in very specific locations when it happened. Deep-sea submariners might have a shot. Submarines are designed to handle extreme forces, and being underwater might protect them from the worst of the atmospheric chaos. But they'd surface to a world that's been completely destroyed. No ports to dock at, no infrastructure, just ruins and ash. People at the poles would have a slightly better chance, since the rotational speed there is much lower. If you were at the exact north or south pole when this happened, you might only experience minimal lateral forces. You'd still deal with the earthquakes, the atmospheric disruption, the volcanic eruptions, but you might not get flung across the ice at 1,000 Downs M pool. Astronauts on the International Space Station would be fine, physically. They'd watch the whole thing happen from orbit, helpless. But when they eventually need to return to Earth, there'd be nowhere safe to land. Mission control would be gone. Landing sites would be underwater or buried in ash. They'd be stranded in space, orbiting a dead world. So let's imagine you somehow, impossibly, survived. You're bruised, broken, but alive. You crawl out of whatever wreckage protected you and look at what's left of the world. The sky is dark, not night dark, but ash dark. Volcanic eruptions and the sheer amount of debris kicked up into the atmosphere have blocked out the sun. It's like nuclear winter, except it's not from bombs, it's from the Earth itself tearing apart. The temperature starts dropping immediately. Without sunlight, photosynthesis stops. Plants die. The food chain collapses. Within weeks, you'd be facing mass starvation even if you survived the initial disaster. The oceans are toxic. Billions of tons of sediment, pollutants, and decomposing organic matter have been stirred up and mixed together. Drinking water is contaminated. Coastal ecosystems are obliterated. Fish populations crash. And then there's the psychological toll. Everyone you knew, probably gone. Your city, destroyed. Your country, unrecognizable. You're living in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where every single system that kept civilization running has collapsed. No electricity, no internet, no supply chains, no governments, no hospitals. Just scattered survivors fighting over whatever scraps remain, trying to figure out how to grow food in a world without sunlight. How to find clean water in a world where every source is poisoned. Honestly, at that point you'd probably start to wonder if survival was even worth it. This wouldn't be like rebuilding after a war or a natural disaster. This would be starting over from scratch with a fraction of the population and a planet that's been fundamentally broken. But here's the thing. None of this is going to happen. The Earth isn't going to stop spinning. Not for a minute, not for a second, not ever. At least, not in any time frame that matters to us. The Earth's rotation is incredibly stable. It's been spinning for 4.5 billion years, and it's going to keep spinning for billions more. The only thing that could stop it would be a collision with another planet-sized object, and at that point, whether the Earth is spinning or not, would be the least of our concerns because we'd all be vaporized instantly. So sleep easy tonight. When you wake up tomorrow, the Earth will still be spinning at the same speed it always has, carrying you along for the ride without you even noticing. But it's fun to think about, isn't it? To imagine what would happen if the rules of physics took a day off and the universe decided to mess with us. That's the beauty of these thought experiments. They remind us just how delicate our existence really is. How much we depend on things we never think about. Like the fact that the ground beneath our feet is rotating at highway speeds and we're all just fine with that. So next time you're having a bad day, just remember, at least the Earth didn't stop spinning. Things could always be worse, but that's a story for another what if.